good to be here. Thank you for coming. First thing in the morning. Try and give you something worthwhile here. So when people think about nematodes in red raspberry, we're usually thinking about root lesion nematodes. And that's Predolenchus. That's the one that gets the most attention for us in red raspberry, and for good reason. That's the one that seems to do the most damage in the most fields. But what I'm going to talk about today is dagger nematodes, Ziphinema. And so there's a picture of each of these on your slide. Hey, can somebody tell me how to use the little laser pointer here so I could point to stuff? All right. Ooh, now we're cooking. Okay. So this is a picture of a Pradolenchus. They're really big nematodes. They are endoparasitic and migratory, which means they spend most of their time running through the insides of the roots, right? That's part of what makes it so hard to control this nematode, is that they're inside the roots. If you apply something, outside the roots, if it's not systemic, it doesn't really affect Pradolenchus very much. In contrast, this is the dagger nematode, Ziphinema americanum, and these guys, I think of them sort of as like soil aphids. They've got this long dagger. It's a stylet. It's basically a little hypodermic needle that they insert. And their little dagger, that's the only part that goes into the plant. And they're drawing juices out of the plant. We have two types here, Ziphinema americanum, and one that's sort of unique to our area, Ziphinema bakeri. Some of the nematologists will say that bakeri is really just part of americanum. I don't know. I don't have that level of understanding of it, but they're very similar. And so for our purposes, I'm just going to talk about Ziphinema and not distinguish whether it's americanum or bakeri. They both can do extensive direct damage to roots. I'll show you a picture of that in a little bit. We know that americanum is an important vector for a whole family of viruses. Tomato ring spot, Arabis mosaic, strawberry latent ring spot are ones that are troublesome to raspberry, and we know that Ziphinema spreads them. So there's really kind of two reasons to worry about dagger nematodes if you have them. One is the direct damage that they do, and the second is the fact that they can spread a family of viruses. This is from an older paper by McElroy, 1972, in which he has got some great images of the kind of damage that dagger nematodes do to roots. So here are some greenhouse grown raspberry roots that were grown without dagger nematodes. Here are root systems that were grown in the presence of daggers, right? And you can see, a lot of those fine roots are just shriveled up and gone. Other part of the picture that's important to see is the swelling that's really characteristic in roots of dagger nematode damage, and the little C-shaped fish hooks here. There's one right there. There's another one right there. So if you're looking at your roots sometime and you see those little fish hooks and that swelling, then it's really time to go get a soil sample and check for dagger nematodes. Just a couple of words about nematode management. How are we managing these right now? And really for us, pre-plant nematode management is the most important part. If you already grow raspberries, I probably don't need to tell you that. You already know it. It's essential because for two reasons. One, we don't have a whole lot of post-plant options, so we need to take care of nematodes, reduce the populations ahead of planting. The other thing is that, at least in the case of Pradolenchus, we know that those first couple years when the plant's just getting established are really essential. Heavy Pradolenchus pressure to a young plant is devastating. Pradolenchus pressure on a midlife or older plant is not great, but it's not as terrible. So those first 2 years are a critical time to manage the nematodes well. So our pre-plants basically are bed broadcast fumigation. The active ingredients in the fumigants that work on the on nematodes are telone, 1,3-D, or Vapam. Both of those are really effective on most nematodes. And just as a reminder, in order for fumigation to work, soil prep is super important. You need a fine texture so that as the fumigants volatilize, there's airspace in there. You need some soil moisture, but not too much soil moisture. That can be challenging, right? Because a lot of times fumigation happens in early September. The rains haven't really come in to help you out. The soil is dry and depleted from perhaps the previous raspberry or potato or other crop. But you have to get your soil moisture into a good range in order for that fumigant to be effective. Again, this is an older slide from 2019. This is just an example of, how effective a good fumigation can be to keep nematode numbers down. This is looking at Pratylenchus, not at Dagger nematodes yet, but here's some readings from, there was a fall fumigation, the fall of 2017, and here's some readings from September in 18 and 19. And so the green here is the untreated check. You can see that, by the second year, those nematode numbers have really jumped up on those unsuspecting baby raspberry plants. But either with a Vapam shallow treatment, Strike 60, which is 60% telone, or the combination, we were suppressing those through that critical window for the plants. But as I said, we don't have a whole lot of options for post-plant nematode management. There is, as you probably know, a special local needs label for Vidate. It's been renewed just recently, so it's good through 2028 right now. It's a very restrictive label, though. It's only good for non-bearing raspberry and only in the establishment year. So, you can't just sort of say, oh, well, I'm just going to, cut my plants down for a year and treat them with Vidate. That's a no-go. It's got to be in the establishment year only. It's applied with 1 or 2 drip applications. The reason that Vidate is so effective, it's not a terrific nematicide, but it is highly mobile in roots. So it's a very effective product for Pratylenchus. I'm not sure how effective it is for Dagger nematodes, though. Another product that we have post-plant is Vellum Prime. This is the active ingredient there is fluopyram. It's a group 7 fungicide. It seems odd that it would function as a nematicide, but so it does. The label on this is much less restrictive than the Vidate label. 2 applications per year, but you can apply this up to the day of harvest. The only restriction on the label that's notable or unusual is that even though you're applying this to the soil, usually through a drip application, you still need to be mindful of resistance management for foliar pathogens. So it's advised that the first foliar fungicide after you apply Vellum Prime to the soil be from a different frac group, so not another group 7 into your foliar. So it can alter your foliar program, but it's not nearly as disruptive as, say, using Vidate. We have another chemistry that could possibly be useful for Dagger nematodes. It's fluazindolazine, and it's marketed by Corteva as a product called Celebro. It's not labeled on raspberry yet. There is currently a grape label, which is non-bearing for a year. There is currently label for some of the other more major crops. A label for raspberry may be coming. It does have efficacy on some, but not all products. or some but not all nematodes. And we didn't really know how effective it was going to be on daggers. Given that we have so few products to choose from, we thought we better give it a try. So here's some older results. This is from 2023. This is the trial we did in which basically we had Pretilencus penetrans. We didn't have dagger nematodes here. So this is just looking at Pretilencus, not at daggers. And this is the untreated check here. And these treatments here, the AB, this A, these are all with Celebro. And you can see we're not getting any separations from the untreated check there. So we're not getting a lot of good activity on Pretilencus with Celebro. In contrast, with Vellum Prime, we are getting good results. So this is Vellum Prime with Celebro, this is Vellum Prime alone, and this is Vellum Prime twice. So we are getting, good activity on Pretilencus with Vellum, but not Celebro. So let's look at dagger nematodes. So this year, what we did was we decided to focus on fields that had dagger nematodes and try and get a look at what had efficacy on daggers. So we had 3 trials set up, all in fields that we knew had dagger nematodes. In 2 of those locations, we had done pre-treatment samples in every single plot. So we did a whole lot of pre-treatment samples, 1 in every single plot. And then we set up our randomizations so that the first randomization was in the plot with the most nematodes, second randomization was in the plot with the second most nematodes, and so on, to try and even it up. Because as you know, in the field, nematodes are really clumped and disparate. When you're doing a randomized trial, it'll really play havoc with trying to analyze the data. So we were able to sort out the plots according to nematode pressure in trial 1 and trial 2. We didn't do that in trial 3. We have, in each of these trials, we have an untreated check. We had single application of Celebro, single application of Celebro plus Vellum, and a single application of Vellum. In the 3rd trial, we also had a treatment where we treated twice with Celebro and another treatment where we treated twice with Vellum. So this, if you haven't seen it, this is our little drip application setup. It's very, very simple. We just get a tote of water, put it on the back of a trailer. We have a little pump here that is powered by a car battery or by a little portable power pack. And all it does is taking water from the hose. It's pumping it out through a little Maisie injector. We have our product here that we're injecting in, and we're sending it out to a drip irrigation system. So we basically lay down a separate drip irrigation system for these treatments so that it doesn't disrupt the grower's system at all. So here's some data from trial 1. So these are Ziphinema, dagger nematodes, right? So here, what we've got is an untreated check. We've got Vellum with no activity against dagger nematodes, and we have Celebro alone and Vellum plus Celebro. And in both of those cases, we have a significant reduction. It's about half the number of dagger nematodes from where we started. So it's not dramatic efficacy, but there is something there. Really similar results from trial 2. Here's our untreated check. Here's Vellum alone. You can see again, there's no benefit of Vellum there. Here's Celebro, and here's Vellum plus Celebro. And here there's no significant differences, but if we lump together the ones that don't have Celebro, these 2 treatments, and then we lump together both of the ones that do have Celebro, then we do get significant differences. And once again, we're getting about half the number of dagger nematodes from where we started. Trial 3, now this is the one where we had more treatments, but it's also the one where we didn't rearrange the plots according to nematode density. So here's our untreated check. Here's one application of vellum. Here's two applications of vellum. The green bars are the average for Ziffinema in August, in the beginning of August, and the orange bars are the average for Ziffinema at the end of August. So untreated check, we're up around 25 to 40. The vellum treatments, we're not getting any reduction. With the Celebro treatments, we are getting lower numbers, especially by the end of August. If you look at these orange bars, we're getting lower numbers than we are in the untreated and vellum treated plots. But it's not significant here because we didn't sort the plots by the number of nematodes that they had. So we're getting really consistent trends in all three of these trials. So we've got some reduction with Celebro. We know that the Celebro is not showing itself to be really effective on root lesion nematodes. And remember, Celebro isn't even available yet. But we do have some confidence that when it becomes available, it is a tool that we can use to reduce Dagger nematodes. But here's something for you to think about. It's like, okay, is this going to be worth it? Like right now, grape growers can use Celebro for nematode control. And it costs about $240 an acre per application, which is not cheap, right? And so you have to think about, well, okay, is this going to be worth it to me in my program? I don't have an answer for you there. Vellum Prime, we do have. You can use it to good effect, I believe, for Pratylenchus, but I don't think it'll help a lot if you have a Dagger nematode problem. So if you have a field that you're considering planting, you'll have to, for now, be sure that you manage your Dagger nematodes before you plant those plants, because you might be able to get a little efficacy with Vidate in the first year. But beyond that, at this moment, we don't really have a tool that's going to be super effective on daggers. So I want to say thanks to the Red Raspberry Commission for funding this research. I want to say a lot of thanks to the folks who cooperated with these trials. Folks were terrific about letting Inga and I onto the field to take samples. We really tried to make our applications and do them in a way that was not disruptive to people's harvests, but sometimes we were disruptive to people's harvests, and I apologize for that. Thank you for your understanding. The registrants were very supportive of this. They provide a lot of advice how to use the products, and really most of all, thanks to Lily and Maggie, who are in the front row here, and also Maggie D and Derek, who helped with this study. They did all the hard work of rummaging through raspberry plantings and installing drip systems in the middle of them and taking samples and taking everything out. So thank you all. And if there's time for questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Is there any pre-harvest intervals?
Yeah.
Celebro?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, huge. So with vellum, it's not a big deal, right? You can go up to the day of harvest. With Celebro, at this point, what they're saying for perennial crops where they have a Celebro label, it's 1 year. So you have to be a year until your next harvest. It's a peculiar thing because Celebro is also labeled for a number of vegetable crops, and the pre-harvest intervals on some of the vegetable crops are very, very short. So I don't know what the label will look like once we get to that point where raspberries on the label. But at this point, for woody perennials and tree fruit, it's a year, which is a long, long time. Thank you. That's an important question.
Have time for about one more? All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.